We had to raise the debt ceiling limit. And here's why. The federal government in 2011, revenues are less than 15% of the economy versus the historical average of 18.2. Spending is 25% of the economy versus the historical average of about 20.5. We're $4 billion short a day, including weekends, of being able to pay our bills. The federal government is $2 billion short a week of being able to pay for mandatory spending, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, interest on the federal debt. So the government didn't have a choice but to raise the debt ceiling, because imagine what would have happened. The largest economy on earth, the temporary sole superpower, the country with over 60% of the world's global reserve currency, having to decide literally every day which bills are you going to pay and which ones are you not going to pay. If you think the downgrade was bad or the market decline was bad, it would have been much worse. How much worse, I can't tell you, and nobody can, but I'm telling you it's worse. The good news is at least something was done in conjunction with it. I would argue not enough, but at least something was done as a first step to try to help restore fiscal sanity and to get spending under control and to engage in comprehensive tax reform. We are spending at 50% a higher rate, 40 to 50% higher rate than at the peak of World War II per person. Our deficits are comparable to the same size deficits we ran during World War II. I would respectfully suggest we got something for World War II. We can debate what we're getting for current deficits and debt. And debt per person adjusted for inflation is over double what it was at the end of World War II and growing at record rates. And unlike the end of World War II, where we were the largest creditor nation in the world, we lent money to other people. We're now the largest debtor nation in the world. And about half of our debt held by the public is held by foreign lenders. That is not in our interest. And the largest holder of our debt is now the Federal Reserve. We're buying our own debt. That's self-dealing. That helps in the short term, keep interest rates down, but it is a high-risk strategy that ultimately you have to unwind. And we're number 28 in the world in fiscal responsibility and sustainability. Number 1, Australia. Number 34, Greece. Mexico's 18. We're in a bad neighborhood. We need to move up. And we need to start soon. And our ranking has declined dramatically in the last 10 years. And this is the future for our budget under our current status quo do-nothing path. The green line assumes that federal revenues as a percentage of the economy will go back to historical levels, 18.2% of GDP. The bars assume that we don't reform Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and that we just charge the national credit card, which right now we don't have a limit, although we should, and that we pay interest. So what's the fastest growing expense? Interest. And what do you get for interest? As we say in the South, shinola. Nothing. Nothing. And for every 1% increase in interest rates, we have to pay $150 billion a year in interest. $150 billion a year. And right now, interests are at historical lows, and where they have the shortest maturity, the average maturity of our debts, the lowest of any nation. So we have huge interest rate risk. This is not a prudent course. And the new health care bill, I hate to tell you, is going to cost us a lot of money. It's going to exacerbate deficits and debt. According to the chief actuary of Medicare, it's going to end up causing health care costs to go up, not down, deficits to be worse, and debt to be worse, to the tune of $12 trillion. That's real money, and that's for Medicare alone. Revenues have gone up, but not as fast as spending. And by the way, when you study this, you'll find out not all tax cuts stimulate the economy, and very few tax cuts pay for themselves. By that I mean you generate more gross revenue after the transaction than if you had not done it. Revenues will go up automatically because of inflation, because of economic growth, and because of bracket creep. And therefore the key is whether you generate more revenues than otherwise you would have generated. And there's only two kinds that typically have done that in the past. Dramatic reductions in tariffs And we now have a lot of free trade zones, so there's not a lot of opportunity there. And secondly, dramatic reductions in marginal tax rates. But the top marginal tax rate now is 35%. How low can you go? We have a progressive tax system. The top 20% of the population pays 68% of all federal taxes, both Social Security, Medicare, and income taxes. The top 0.1% pays 11% of all federal taxes. Now, we can debate whether it's progressive enough, but it is a progressive tax system. But here's a problem. 51% of Americans pay Zippo for income tax. Let me restate that. A majority of the public, through our taxpayers, pay nothing. And a significant percentage get rebates through the earned income tax credits. That means that a majority is getting a free lunch. And the constitutional responsibilities of the federal government are funded exclusively or overwhelmingly with the income tax. So we've got a lot of people who aren't contributing. On the other end of the coin, the top 1% of Americans pay a median effective tax rate of 18.8%. How can that be when the top marginal tax rate is 35%? Because most of their income comes from capital gains, which is taxed at 15%. So you can increase the marginal tax rate whatever you want, and you're not going to get that much income more because it's a capital gains issue. So we need to do comprehensive tax reform that will have more people paying once they make above a certain function of poverty level, and that will get those who are truly wealthy to pay more in an economically rational and sustainable fashion.